Hey up lads and lasses, Dan Fire here, back again with some more Infinite Lagrange. Apologies about this one, going a bit later than I really wanted it to, but loads of stuff happened last week, and brother got married, and I just unfortunately just didn't have time to record, so that's pretty much it really. So, I did get quite a bit of testing done, at least, for the tier maker for the destroyers. We got a lot of testing during the frigates when I was testing those, because you know those early game fleets where you're running frig destroyers, like pretty good place to really test when the frigates are doing well. And same case for the destroyers, but the destroyers you need to take test a bit more into that mid game, even late game comps. Do run destroyers because they're extremely efficient for CP cost. A lot of them are very high damage for the CP cost, and yeah. So we're going to go on from where we left off from last time I did this. I'll start from the bottom up again. We've got the situational, the AC721 generic. It's still going to sit there. It is, you know, it's good at what it does. It goes into the mining fleet. It's good for that. That's about it. No, nothing really about it that too much change or anything like that. The only one of the AC721s that got any changes was the AC721 carrier variant. Which got, in my opinion, way too heavily nerfed for what it does. Actually, I think all the destroyers got way too heavily nerfed for the carrier variant. I mean, Corvettes aren't in the best place in the first place. You know, there's some very, 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 very good Corvettes, but most of them are mediocre to shit. You know, so killing off the carriers doesn't matter because, well, increasing the CP cost on carriers doesn't matter too much because you don't run that many. You know, you run 10 and there's your T800s and so your Cellular Defenders or your Neb Chaser Pulsars in, and that's about it. That's about all the good Corvettes. There's only like three Corvettes that are worth bringing in nowadays. So yeah, the hit really doesn't really matter too much. If they were going to nerf anything, it should have been the fighters. But anyway, I digress. Otherwise, I'm going to go on a long spiel about that. I'm going to get through this video. Eris, Armored, it's going to stay in C tier. Nothing really changed with it. It gets a little bit more viability now because the heavy armor actually helps it out because of the energy damage nerfs that came in. Well, energy damage ships all got CP increases, with exception of cruisers and above. So you will see it's going to be more useful now, but I still just think because of its, you know, lack of damage output compared to other ships in this list, it just sits where it is. Series aircraft, no changes whatsoever. Again, it's completely fine. It's not the best aircraft carrier out of the destroyers. The Tundra is better at fighter carriers. So yeah, it's just going to sit where it is really. Aldebra Armored, I'm going to move up to B tier. The end of B tier though. On paper, it looks like it should be at least as good as the Aldebra generic, if not better. It has about similar sort of damage output, etc, etc. Its shots don't hit often enough. They have like a 30-odd second cooldown at base, which means, you know, even with those 3 turrets that it's got compared to the Aldebra's 2, if it misses a shot, it misses a lot more damage output. And this is why I found that the DPM on it is just flat out worse than the generic type, and it's not worth the extra 15 armor and an extra 3000 HP that the Aldebra brings at base, and even upgraded, it's just not worth it. However, the extra armor now, like I mentioned with the Eris Armored, might actually help out a little bit more because of you might see some slightly less energy-based ships around. That being said, when I talk about the Taurus, we'll get to the Taurus eventually, and you'll see, yeah, it kind of sits where it is. AC721 aircraft, it is, it's just, they're not good anymore. All of the destroyers, in my opinion, that's the dual purpose, isn't it? It is the dual purpose. So we'll grab the Guardian, we'll grab the AC721. I'm missing one, aren't I? Am I missing one? No, that's the two Corvette carriers from destroyers, right? So we'll talk about these in sequence and why I'm dropping them down to C tier. They both now have a very, very large issue in the fact that even though the Jaeger got nerfed, it got pulled back slightly on the nerf, and it now becomes more cost-effective to use the Jaeger than the AC-721 and the Guardian, which in my opinion puts them in a position of redundancy, because you just don't need them if you've got the Jaeger. Not to mention, where I mentioned earlier, there is only about 3 Corvettes that are worth ever running, because most of the Corvettes aren't particularly good. Some are, you know, the okay, the passable. CVM11, the anti-air version of it, it's an okay anti-air, but it's no T800, you know. So it's like, there's the T800, there's your mediocre, you know, CVM11, Cell Defender, Neb Chasers up here as well for damage output. And now you're in this like position where it's like, well, everything else is so far below, it doesn't benefit you to run them, especially with the CP increases on their carriers. So I generally think try run less Corvettes, run more fighters. You should have been doing that anyway, because fighters are just far better at the current moment, fighters and bombers. And yeah, with the nerfs now, it's just worth not running them, in my opinion. Well, it's worth running your T800s and maybe Pulsars or Cell Defenders, you know, one of those two, but always T800. And then just ignore the rest of them. Potentially think about putting them in second fleets or something, or using them in a strike fleet, which I currently do, because then the CP cost doesn't matter. So yeah, in your main fleet, drop the AC-721 and the Guardian dual purposes. Run Jaegers if you're going to run any Corvettes within fleet. If you can't bring them on your carriers, on Reinforce, use Jaeger. They are more cost effective now, and the benefits of the Guardian's, you know, triple damage buff and stuff has been sort of made redundant with its increase to CP. As simple as that. AC-721 missile, exactly where it stays. It's really good. It's actually AA's actually quite significant now, which is kind of interesting. I was actually considering putting this up at the top of the back of A tier, specifically because it's AA's actually. It was good before, like it was okay before, like average. Now it's like that borderline average good because of the AA changes. And yeah, have a go with it. If you're missing, you know, some key AA ships, you haven't got Wingdasar AA, something like that, and you don't have all the fighters to do AA for you, Mistrals, T800s, consider running some AC-721s in place of maybe where you used to run AC-721 Guardian or AC-721 aircraft or Guardian dual purpose. Consider running AA ships in those spots. You'll save a bit of CP there. And you bring in, like, you know, a decent amount of AA damage if that's what you were originally using for. So yeah, AC-721 missile. I'm gonna leave it at the top of B tier. It still absolutely and utterly annihilates anything in the back row. When you got like Xenos and Noma support in those back row slots, AC-721 pulls them apart. It's really, really good for that. Same with the Wingdasar integrated and stuff like that. Series Tactical, I'm going to move it down a bit. I think I personally overzealously put it into B tier because I was using it quite a lot to buff things like IO and stuff like that. And I think for its CP cost, it is just not really very effective for, you know, buffing just a single ship type or, you know, just your IOs. And yeah, that was just me being a little bit overzealous, I think. It's still very, very good for bringing in and buffing those IO. Don't get me wrong, like buffed up IO is devastating, but I think because it's only got that real one purpose and, like, you know, buffing ST59, but ST59 can bring its own in. I think, yeah, I overly sort of tiered that a little bit. Wingdasar integrated, it's on par with the AC-721 in terms of damage output, pretty much. These are very much interchangeable. The AC-721 missile variant has better AA, and that's why I'm going to keep it ahead in the top B tier. Tundra support has actually got much better AA potential now. I still think the AC721 outperforms it the majority of the time. But, you know, you've got that utility of also healing ships, so it's kind of a difficult one to place now because of its utility that it brings into fleet. Same as the Guardian support. These two are kind of like both on par, so I'm going to move them up into the bottom of A tier. I still think the Guardian outshines the Tundra in terms of its AA ability, and I believe because of that, I'm going to leave the Guardian in the slightly better position than the Tundra support. But yeah, the AA potential on them now, not bad. It was pretty awful before. I say awful, it was okay. It's now that borderline of average to good. With them providing that, you know, utility of healing ships, which is actually really quite nice. And that's become better now because you can run more heavily armored ships because there's slightly less energy damage output. So yeah, it's not too bad. Guardian Pulse Cannon, it's basically the same as a Taurus. Yeah, the Taurus offensive. It's difficult. Because of the CP changes, I'm actually going to move it up. And do you know what? I'll do the Tauruses now. The Tauruses are going to pretty much stay where they are. The reason being with the Tauruses is, although they got nerfed quite heavily, the fact that they still have evasion tank, high DPM, energy-based DPM, it still puts them in a point where they are still one of the best in slot destroyers, and you don't mind paying the CP tax on it for that energy weapon because of how solid they are overall. The Guardian Pulse didn't receive as bad of a nerf, and has now, because of that, put it sort of on par with the Taurus offensive anyway. So these two ships are kind of like go hand in hand. You can mix and match them. You can switch them out if you want to. They basically bring about the same sort of damage. The Guardian Pulse doesn't have the tank, but generally speaking, it can potentially outdamage the Taurus offensive at the same time. So they kind of like they just interchange too well. The Taurus defensive's probably still the worst of the Taurus types. Its AA has gotten better. But I wouldn't run it for the AA still. Personally, I'd rather run, you know, Wing to SAR AA. I'd actually consider running the AC721 AA now, so the A721 missiles for AA over the Taurus defensive. So there's that as well. So yeah, probably where the Guardian Pulse is going to go now. So yeah, nerfed, but I still tiered it up a little. Eris Cannon, that can stay where it is. Nothing's changed on it. It's a very average ship for what it is. You know, good evasion, okay damage, and compared to everything else, it's just where it is. Wing to SAR anti-ship, again, the integrated I find is better. It has more consistent damage output. The Wing to SAR anti-ship potentially has better damage output, but it'll never friggin' do it because it's got a giant railgun, and giant railguns can't shoot for anything. Aldebaran Armored, yeah, you know, it's got 3 turrets, they do 400 damage, they got a 30-odd second cooldown, got a massive lock-on time. They look like they should DPM the same as the Aldebaran generic. They do not at all. They will not keep up damage-wise in PvP with the Aldebaran generic, and I don't think the extra tank that they provide is worth the Aldebaran generic. Taurus Assault, sort of spoke about that a little bit earlier, about on par with the offensive now. I will put the Quara railgun above it. I think the Quara railgun is a better ship now because of the Taurus nerf, and it's at least on par. I personally think it's better. You know, it's kind of like a mini Eris almost. Quara Torps, I will also move above the Tauruses. I think they're better for the CP cost. And again, that's like a mini Callisto. Aldebaran generic, because we've kind of got all the Tauruses in a line now, is on par with the Taurus Offensive and the Assault to an extent. These are interchangeable ships now. You can switch between them quite happily. They provide about the same sort of damage, similar sort of tank, although the Aldebaran is like a more flat-focused, heavy tank. The Taurus is the you know, trying to dodge stuff kind of tank, unless you go the Assault, where you got a bit more armor and stuff like that, which is why I think the Assault might be slightly better than the Aldebaran generic. But yeah, Aldebaran and Taurus is now interchangeable. Feel free to just switch them out. You know, if you fancy running the Aldebaran because it's a cooler looking ship, run it. It's going to do about the same as the Taurus now for its CP cost. And same for the Taurus. If you prefer the look of the Taurus, run that over the Aldebaran. They're about the same. Although you will be paying that premium for the Taurus, don't forget that. And that's why it's about on par. You will sit there and go, oh, the Aldebaran's died before the Tauruses, or the Taurus has got more damage output. Yeah, but you've also paid 4 CP more for it. So, you know, there it is. It's not 4 CP, but... series support. Guardian support, Tundra support. The Tundra and the Guardian are not as good as the series in healing capacity. The series healing capacity is more relevant now, so I'm going to move it up to S tier. The series potential is... The Noma has the best... the Noma and the Cass have the highest healing potential per CP cost. I know people say it's the series, it's not. Go check out the Noma, give it the triple healing buffs, and they generally will out-heal the series most of the time. There is a sort of game, mid-fleet setup running more heavily into the Frigate Destroyer side, where the series actually benefits there. But in the heavier fleet, the Noma takes it back, and the lighter fleet, which is mainly more Frig-focused, the Noma still wins out there as well. It's a bit weird. The series and the Noma can like bounce around a little bit. Generally speaking, though, the Cass is just better in most cases because of, you know, high HP ball, bigger armor. Its strategy's better than them as well. So the Cass is just better. But I want to know that the series support is, you know, it is S tier. It'll heal as well as the Noma. In terms of PvE, you should be running pretty much every fleet should have some form of ability to heal itself. It will make massive amounts of difference, especially if you're in the PvE server, where like just pure DPM doesn't matter. If you can actually just out heal what the NPCs are doing, you can sit there all day and just keep fighting. It's fine. Can't do that in PvP, obviously, because if the longer you're in a combat situation, you're going to get flanked and stuff like that, which is why I focus more on damage in PvP than PvE. So yeah, series support up there. Guardian and Tundra supports we spoke about earlier. I personally prefer the Guardian slightly over the Tundra. Better DPM on it, better anti-AA on it, and yeah, that's about it really. Top of S tier, Eris Heavy Cannon got nerfed. It's still there though. It's still got the best damage per minute of all of the destroyers, even at its CP cost. So yeah, it's just too good. And with the changes, when it got the ability to increase its hit rate, or well, decrease its hit rate debuff that it gets from one of its strategies, it just becomes ludicrous, really. And at 10 CP, it's still just... It's still too good. Really is. It's simple as that. Tundra aircraft, still, in my opinion, the place where I like to put my Mistrals, especially the early mid-game. I know people like putting them on Solar Whales and stuff like that, because you can go with the cooldown setup. And they are fantastic there, and I agree. They do really well. I still like having them on Tundras, though. I'm hard to change, so... But it is still very much, even if you go the other route and put it on your Solar Whales, it's still the best slot aircraft carrier destroyer by like far. It leads the series for dead. So yeah, simple as. Wings Hussar AA is again best in slot destroyer. To be honest, it's just best in slot AA still. Yes, the light cone buffs were amazing. The Guardians now and the Tundra support did good AA. The AC-721 missile does pretty good AA now. They still all pale in comparison to what the Winged Hussar AA can potentially provide, plus its utility of buffing up your aircraft and stuff. Winged Hussar AA is just a no-brainer. It is just horrendously strong for what it is. I was kind of hoping I'd see something like the AC-721 missiles come up a bit more and sort of match on par with those Winged Hussars, or, you know, even get a frigate for the CP cost, bringing in the same kind of AA potential. It would have been great. Unfortunately, we did not get any of those. So it's just the Winged Hussar is best in slot for your AA needs still, if you don't want to bring them on fighters. And even if you do want to bring them on fighters, still bring some Winged Hussar AAs and give the fighters a buff. And bring some AA in with you. They are still squidgy though, so bear that in mind. You will need a front row to tank from. So yeah, that is the destroyer changes. Again, apologies about this one being a bit later than I wanted to, because I was supposed to get it out last week. It just went, just a hectic week. So, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.